Hi, this is Sean, and today we're going to go over the Entityform module for Drupal 7. Entityform is a relatively new and extremely versatile way to create forms on your Drupal website. Entityform is a more advanced alternative to the popular web form module, which has been the long-time standard for creating surveys, applications, event registrations, and other types of forms used for collecting information from your users. However, because the web form module is restricted to the basic field types that come with it, as popular as the web form module is, it's also limited in the types of fields that can be used to collect the user data. Although the fields included with web form are often all you need for many basic forms, there are many situations where you may need additional field types that are not possible with the web form module, and this is where the Entityform module is most useful. The Entityform module allows you to build forms using any available fields from Drupal core or contributed modules. For example, you can create a form using the address field module, which would allow you to collect user addresses with properly formatted address fields that would change dynamically for each country that the user may select. Other field examples include entity references to reference nodes, users, or other entities. And this even works with the inline Entityform module, which allows you to create a very nice widget for adding multiple referenced entities to a form. You could also use link fields, field collection fields, phone number fields, and basically any other field or field module that's available to Drupal. Okay, so now we're going to go over a basic example of creating a simple entity form. So the first thing we'll need to do, obviously, is install and enable the Entityform module. And it can be found on Drupal.org, and its project name is Entityform, one word. And it has several required dependencies that you may already have installed on your website, but if not, you will need to install and enable those also. And those three required dependency modules are CTools, the Chaos Tool Suite, which is project name CTools, the Entity API, project name Entity, and the Views module, project name Views. So if you don't already have those, go ahead and install those also on your website along with the Entityform module. And I already have those installed, so all I need to do is go to my modules page and enable the Entityform module. It should be noted we're using the 2.0 branch of Entityform, which has an improved notification system that ties directly in with the rules module, which is very nice. And it does come with its own Entityform notifications module, which creates some basic default rules and has some further dependencies needing entity to text module, entity rules, and we're not going to be using that. I think just using the rules module is more straightforward. So that's the method that we'll be going over in this tutorial, but just wanted to mention there is an alternative method using the Entityforms notification module that comes with Entityforms and its required dependencies. So I've enabled the Entityform module, and we're going to go ahead and save that. And once that's installed and enabled, we now have a new menu item under Structure called Entityform Types. So navigate there and click on that, and this is where our entity forms will live. Since we just enabled this, there's nothing there at the moment, so the first thing to do is click Add Entityform Type, and we'll give it a name, which will be registration. For this example, we're going to do a basic event registration. The intro form instructions are just that. If you wanted to put some introduction text or basic instructions to display above the form, you can enter those here. And then if you navigate towards the bottom, we have multiple tabs here. And the first tab is the access settings, and the form status can be either open or closed. If the form is closed, that means that no submissions will be allowed. So this is good for, say, time-based forms that end at a certain date, then you can come here and close it. The access roles, we'll choose anonymous and authenticated, which means anybody could submit the form. You could choose only authenticated or specific roles if you want to limit access to submitting the form. And the resubmit action simply chooses different actions to happen if the user tries to resubmit the same form. We're going to leave it at the default, allow new submissions, but we could have them edit the previous submission if they try. If they want to come back, then instead of a blank new submission, it would pull up their previous submission for editing, or simply only allowing once, or to bring them back to the confirmation page that they saw when they first submitted it. The next tab is Submission Page Settings. And here you can choose if you want them to go to a preview page before the final submission so they can review their form data. The submission page title, which would be obviously displayed at the top of the submission page, and we'll just put thank you. Submission reply is the body text, and you can put whatever you'd like there. Okay, and this checkbox, if you want to display a copy of the information they entered in the form, you just check this box and it will show a copy on the page so they can review the information they had entered. Submission views. The Entityform module creates two default views that are used for viewing the submission reports, which is an administrator view, which allows administrators to go and review all the Entityform submissions that have been placed. And the view for the current user submissions is a view where the users can go and view only their own submissions. And Entityform comes with two default views, so this is what it's going to use. Because these are actual Drupal views, they can be modified to suit your needs, and you can create new views, and once you create new views, they would be also available in these drop downs to select. The draft settings, you can make your form draftable, which simply means that the user can save the form before it's completed and come back at a later time to complete and submit the form. So if you'd like that option, simply check this box and fill out the information below. The menu setting is simply the regular Drupal menu checkbox. If you'd like your form available as a Drupal menu item, check this box and fill out the appropriate fields. The URL path settings is simply the submit URL alias would be an alias to the submit URL. Entityforms have a hard-coded URL to make the form accessible to submit it, which isn't very user-friendly. It's a long URL. So if you want something that looks pretty and a nice user-friendly URL, you can override it by typing it in here. We'll just put register. So that URL will now bring us to the form once it's ready. And form overrides, just various text and button overrides to customize your own text if you'd like. The only one we're going to worry about here is the submit button, and we're going to put submit registration. So that will be the button text to submit the form. Now we're going to go ahead and save the Entityform type, and we're taken immediately to the Manage Fields tab. And here, this is just like any other content type, page or article content type for entities within Drupal, where you attach fields to it. And the fields available are any Drupal fields that are available to your website, whether they're core Drupal fields or fields added by contributed modules. So if we look at the field type, we have various core fields, boolean, decimal, file, float, image, etc. And then we've already installed some additional contributed modules. One of notable interest is the address field module. So we're going to go ahead and click that as a field for our entity form. We'll just call it address. And we'll save that. We'll make it required and just leave all the default settings. You can add, we'll add first and last name, which adds additional fields to the address for first and last name. You can also do organization, and there's various other configuration options. You can limit it to just one country. We'll leave it to multiple countries, and we're going to go ahead and click Save. And now we're going to add an email address using the email address field, which is a contributed module that we had installed. Click Save. Make that required. And the last field we're going to add for this demonstration will be an entity reference, which is a contributed module called references. And we'll leave that the checkboxes. And we're going to choose the target type of node. And I've already created some articles, and we're just going to use that as references. Required, label, event. And that's it. We've added 3 fields, and obviously you can add whatever fields you'd like in here, text fields, file fields for uploading files or images, numeric fields, etc. We've used some more of the kind of neat fields just to show you some of the flexibility of the entity form. So the next step, let's go ahead and type in register, which was the alias we typed. And that's it. Now if you can see, we've got a nice form created, and this is really beautiful here. The address field automatically formats everything correctly and shows the fields that are relevant to the country selected. So Afghanistan is the first one. You can change that into defaults. We're going to make it United States. We'll change it to, and as you can see, the formatting changed and gave us the state field automatically, the proper required fields, and everything's laid out really nice. The email address field is a true email address field, which will validate that the email address entered is a properly formatted email address. And the entity reference field shows us 3 options, and these are nodes that I had already created for this demonstration. So these are actual nodes in this website, and that entity reference is pulling those in and giving those as an option. So that's really, really nice. So let's go ahead and fill out something here. Fake address. All right, and we'll submit. And there's our submission text and title that we had entered previously. And that's all there is to it. As you can see, it's pretty quick and simple and painless to create an entity form for collecting information that you might want on your website, you know, for events, forms, polls, whatever. Quick and easy to do. Now, once the form is submitted, it just goes into the database, and it can be pulled by going to the Submissions tab, and here's our view with all of our submissions, and you can pull it up and view it here. If you'd like an email to be sent upon submission, that's pretty easy to do, and we'll go over one of the methods available for creating that right now. Okay, to send email notifications on entity form submissions, we're going to need the rules module, which may already be installed on your site, but if not, its project name is rules. And we'll also need the token module, which is very popular and most likely already installed. If not, its project name is simply token. Okay, so on our website, I believe we already have these installed. Yep, so enable rules and rules UI, and then for the token module, install token and entity tokens, which is important because this will make all of your entity field values accessible to rules. So make sure you install both of those. Entity tokens is a submodule of the token module. And if you'd like the ability to send HTML emails, we will also need the MIME mail module, MIME mail, one word, and the mail system module, mail system, one word. That's not required if you only want to send plain text. You do not need this, but for this example we're going to send HTML emails, which allows us to bold text and just provide better formatting, which I prefer. So if you want to follow along with this example, go ahead and install both the MIME mail and the mail system module. Okay, and we're going to enable that, the MIME mail and mail system. And for MIME mail, click the configure, got my email address in here. And this is important. Really the only configuration we need to do is under the email format, change it from plain text to full HTML or filtered, whichever is relevant, or any other input filters that you have. We just want to make sure that the email format selects an input filter that allows HTML. So for this example, we'll do full HTML and click Save. And we are going to create a new rule. So I've already got one in here. We'll delete this so we can start from scratch. Okay, so if we go to configuration, workflow, rules, there's no rules in here. So we're going to do add a new rule, and we'll call this one send admin email on entity form submission. And you can give it a tag if you'd like for grouping your rules together. We're going to react on an event under entity form submission. We have several choices here. You can create rules to react on entity forms being deleted, saved, updated, before being saved, or when a submission is viewed. So a lot of flexibility here. This one we're going to do after saving a new entity form submission. Okay. Select that and save it. And for our condition, you don't have to do anything here if you only have one entity form. If you have multiple entity forms and you want different emails to go, you could put a condition to compare which entity form type it is. So you can go to condition and it's data comparison. And under data select, you can find the entity form type. Equals, we only have one entity form called registration. If you had multiple entity forms in your system, you'd have multiple choices here. But the point is you can put various conditions, and it doesn't have to be restricted to just checking the entity form type. Basically, you can check all kinds of conditions to fire this rule. And also, the rule doesn't have to be restricted to just sending emails. You can perform basically any action that's available to rules. For this example, we are going to do an HTML email. So right now, just to review, for this rule, the event is after saving a new entity form submission, if the condition, meaning the entity form type is a registration, then we will, and let's add this action, under system, send HTML email. Okay, it does need a key. You can type whatever you want here. Really, what I tend to do is just use the entity form type as the key. 2, I'm going to send this to myself. And you can put carbon copies and blind carbon copy recipients if you'd like. Sender name, if you leave it empty, it's going to use the site-wide configured name. Sender email, same thing. This is who the email is going to Appear from, we'll leave that blank to use the site-wide configured address. Reply to email address, we'll leave that blank. Same thing. Subject, new event registration. So this will just be the subject line of the email. And here's where the important part is, which is the body. This is obviously the body of the email. Now if we expand the replacement patterns, you'll notice we have all kinds of tokens available. And we can just go ahead and use any field values from the entity form to insert into our body. I have one pre-formatted, so I'm just going to copy and paste that in here to save us some time. Okay, the created date you can see is a token available that will just show the date that the entity form was submitted. We've got I just used the strong HTML tags to format this a little prettier. Mailing address, and that corresponds to entity form field address token, which is the postal field address. Okay, and we've got email address and event. So that's basically all the fields that were filled in, and that were filled in on the entity form. You can put an alternative plain text body. Honestly, I'm not sure when that's used, so I think we can just ignore that. If you wanted to put attachments in, that's pretty nice. You could do that. And you can leave the language empty. So basically that's it. Just to review quickly, the key, which is the entity form type, who you want to send it to, and you can use a token if you'd like there. The email subject and the body using tokens. And that's it. We'll click Save. And now let's submit the form again. Change it to United States. Anywhere. We'll just make up some address values here. Make up an email address for the submitter. We'll choose one of the event nodes and click Submit. Okay, and that's it. I've received an email to my inbox, and as you can see, it's nicely formatted, containing only the information we had filled out in that body using the token. So here's the date filled in automatically, the mailing address, and this is what I really love about entity forms, is being able to use the address field module, which allows us to collect the first and last name and properly formatted postal addresses, and it's properly formatted not only on the form itself when the user is submitting it, but also when we output it using a token in our email or in other places, views and reports, for example, the email address and the event class. So there you have it. Pretty quick and simple to create a very flexible entity form using any Drupal fields that you'd like, and really quickly and easily to set up a rule-based submission email with a lot of flexibility using rules and Drupal fields. And one other benefit of using the entity form module is that entity forms and entity form submissions are true Drupal entities, so you have a lot of hooks available right out of the box to react on different entity form events that may be happening. So you have, for instance, hook entity form load, insert, update, delete, view, and view alter, which allows you to work with and modify entity form data using Drupal hooks. And also, because entity forms are true Drupal entities, they work out of the box with Drupal services. So you can use, for example, the REST web service module to perform CRUD operations on entity forms, which we've used on projects to, through web services, automatically create entity form submissions from remote websites. So as you can see, Entityform is extremely versatile and flexible, allows you to do some really complex scenarios and simple scenarios. So I hope this demonstration was beneficial and helpful to you, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.